Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates.
The afternoon sun shines bright over the village of Barola. Located on the outskirts of the national capital, as you enter the village, you're greeted by construction work and a road that has been ripped apart. Perhaps metaphorically depicting the number of lives ripped apart by the coronavirus pandemic. This village is home to a number of women, many of whom lost their work during the pandemic. For many of these women, life never went back to being the same.
मैं मंथली कमा लेती थी 10 से 12 हज़ार रुपये कमा लेती थी मैं दुकान में, क्योंकि आप मेरे से ले नहीं जाओगे, मेरे को दे नहीं जाओगे। 10-12 हज़ार रुपये मैं कमा लेती थी। और अभी मैम मेरा काम है 1500 रुपये का, बस
4-5 हज़ार मिल जाते थे।
4-5 हज़ार और अभी 200-300 रुपये।
हाँ, मिल जाते हैं
5,000 रुपये।
और लॉकडाउन में कितने पैसे कमाते थे?
वही आधी तनख्वाह काट के दे देते, घर बैठेगी
आधी तनख्वाह काट के देते थे। Even a year after the pandemic, Pinky is struggling to rebuild her life. Before the lockdown last year, she was a proud owner of a cosmetic store. But now, she does odd jobs to even earn 1,500 rupees per month. आप क्या काम करती?
मैम मैं पहले तो काम करती थी, मेरा दुकान थी, लेकिन अभी नहीं है। वो मेरी लॉकडाउन के टाइम पे पूरा लॉस हो गया मेरा। मैं किराए पे ले रखी थी दुकान, तो मैं किराया नहीं दे पाई, तो फिर मैंने इसलिए वहाँ से मकान खाली करके उसकी दुकान मैंने अपना मकान में रख दिया है सामान, और अभी वो सारा सामान ऐसे पड़ा हुआ है।
किस चीज़ की दुकान?
मैम मेरी दुकान थी कॉस्मेटिक की, तो अभी सारा माल मेरा ऐसे पड़ा हुआ है। मैंने दुकान का किराया दिया, तो अब किराया दूंगी कि दुकान भरूंगी, और दुकान उस टाइम पे खुल नहीं रही थी लॉकडाउन में। सभी लोग मार के भैया शटर डाउन करो, नहीं बंद करो, ये नहीं चलेगी, तो इसकी वजह से मेरी दुकान नहीं चल रही थी।
Away from the chaos of this city, when Pinky was a young child, she had dreams for herself. She wanted to be a doctor or a teacher, but her parents made her drop out of school. Now, all that Pinky wishes is for her children to fulfill their aspirations.
अब पहले तो हम लोग जो पढ़ते थे, भाई मैं तो टीचर करूँगी, मैं तो टीचरिंग करूँगी, मैं तो, लेकिन पापा मम्मी ने कभी पढ़ाया नहीं। 2-4 दिन गए, फिर बैठा दिए, फिर चोरी छिपे भग गए बच्चों के साथ। नहीं मैं तो जाऊँगी, मैं तो पढ़ूँगी, मैं कुछ बनूँगी। लेकिन फिर पापा ने डांट डपट के घर में बिठा दिया कि नहीं जाना, लड़की जाते कहीं नहीं जाएगी तो फिर हम घर में ही बैठ के रह गए, फिर हम पढ़े ही नहीं आगे जाके।
The lockdown imposed due to the COVID-19 pandemic has most brutally affected women across sectors. Between March to April, female labor force participation declined by 27% compared to a 13% decline for women. More women in total lost their livelihood due to COVID-19 than men. According to reports, the reasons for this decline were many and varied. Sometimes they stayed home to take care of their family, and at other times, circumstances were especially difficult for women. So you do talk about how women are staying away from jobs due to like social norms and everything else, but do you also think that, that it's also that women are staying out of the workforce out of choice, and or that there are lesser jobs for women in the workforce itself? Because I think you also talk about how automation is impacting women workers.
Definitely. So again, automation is a recent phenomenon, but let's go back in history again, right? Because I think that's where a lot of my research and lessons draw from. When we look at agriculture as a sector, every time a new kind of mechanization was introduced in agriculture, it resulted in a lot of job losses for women. So there's a very landmark paper written by Santosh Mehrotra and others, which actually documents this and says that, when rice threshers were introduced or when seed harvesters were introduced, think about all the tasks that women actually do. Right? These are all highly labor-intensive tasks, low productivity tasks. You bring in that machine, and who gets displaced? It's the woman who gets displaced. She's not allowed to or trained onto the machine. It's the men who then take over that role with the machine, and she is relegated to doing other tasks or moving out completely. So definitely, like historically, we have seen this. Now, if we look at textiles as an example, most of the textile clusters, and I visited many of them, you see that women are working with their hands, right? So women will work at home. They will not actually go to any kind of factory. Like a lot of the handloom work, a lot of the handicrafts are all made at home. They are not actually made in any kind of factory environment. Why? Because women can't leave the home. but they are the ones who can do that sewing, right? Sitting on hours and hours and like patiently. I mean, think of your chicken curry. Right, in outskirts of Lucknow, you have clusters and clusters of women from the minority community, particularly preparing those beautiful chicken curry lehengas that South Delhi's women wear at weddings. So it's just hard labor. It's extremely hard, and it's a skill for them which is passed down from grandmother to mother to the daughter. And but now when the power loom came, a lot of crafts started getting made in the factory environment on the power loom. So Surat is a cluster which is actually making a lot of replicas of the handloom that are made in other clusters in the country on the power loom at 1/10 or 1/20 the cost. So, and they are exporting that.
The now aged Pinky sometimes looks at younger girls and thinks about her younger self. Shivani here too wanted to be a teacher, but she had to drop out of school during the lockdown. Her parents couldn't afford to keep on educating her.
लॉकडाउन की जैसे पढ़ाई छोड़ दी मैंने. अब इतनी फीस नहीं है तो कहाँ से हम लोग इतनी फीस देंगे स्कूल में. अब फीस चली जाएगी तो हम पढ़ाई करेंगे क्यों नहीं करेंगे. पैसा होना चाहिए.
Her sister Anuradha also dropped out to look after her ailing parents.
घर में इतनी परेशानी है, पापा भी बीमार रहते हैं, मम्मी भी, तो काम करना पड़ा, पढ़ाई इस वजह से छोड़ना पड़ा.
While their brother was able to complete his education, these two young sisters stayed back to help their families. Perhaps a social expectation that weighs heavier on women than men. It is estimated that 10 million girls could have dropped out of school due to the coronavirus pandemic. Many younger children in this village have had their schools taken away from them. Oftentimes, the parents cannot afford to buy each child a separate phone, and as a consequence, one child misses their classes over another.
हाँ मैम, मेरे बच्चे पढ़ रहे हैं, सरकारी स्कूल से पढ़ रहे हैं. हाँ फ़ोन पे पढ़ रहे हैं, लेकिन 4 बच्चे, मैं फ़ोन उतना नहीं कर सकती हूँ. मेरे घर में एक ही फ़ोन है. अब एक फ़ोन पे एक ही बच्चा कर सकता है, तो 3 बच्चे मेरा भी ऐसे ही हैं. बारी बारी में सबको करा देती हूँ, भाई अभी तू अपना काम ले ले, फिर तू अपना कर ले.
Women have particularly had to bear the burden of raising their children. Pinky says she had to give in to the whims of her children all through the lockdown. They struggled not only because there was no work, but because they had to spend more money as children felt hungrier out of boredom.
आपको लगता है कोई ऐसी भी औरतें हैं जिनको लगता है कि लॉकडाउन में उनका घर का काम ज़्यादा बढ़ गया? किस तरह से बढ़ा?
मैम काम तो इस तरह से बढ़ गया. पहले बच्चे स्कूल चले जाते थे, खाया पिया स्कूल चले गए, पति खाया पिया ड्यूटी चला गया, हम भी खाए पिए अपने काम पे चले गए, तो खर्चा था नहीं. शाम को आते थे, अपना बनाया खाया फिर सो गए, खर्चा नहीं था. लेकिन घर में रहने से बच्चे घर पे हैं तो मम्मी हमें ये खाना है, मम्मी हमें वो खाना है, मम्मी हमें ये चीज़ चाहिए, तो खर्चे अपने आप से बढ़ गए वो लॉकडाउन के द्वारा. पति भी घर में पड़ा है, तो अरे यार आज तो मेरा ये खाने का मन कर रहा है, लेकिन क्या करें, कहीं से है ही नहीं कुछ भी. अच्छा ठीक है, चलो मैं देखती हूँ, इससे उससे किसी से मिल जाएगा तो मैं करके देखती हूँ, तो खर्चे बढ़ गए वो.
However, not all was so desolate. Pinky says her husband, who would never even fetch a glass of water for himself, would now sometimes offer to cook for the children.
जैसे अभी खाना बन रहा है, मैं लेट हो रही हूँ, खाना नहीं हो पा रहा बच्चों के लिए, तो वो आ गए, अच्छा चल ठीक है मैं सब्जी काट.
But not every woman has been as fortunate as Pinky. There are many who paid for their husband's alcoholism all through the lockdown. Pooja, whose jhuggi had just crumbled down when we met her, told us that her husband would spend all her money on alcohol and she would be left to raise her children on her own, 2 of who are physically disabled.
पति बहुत दारू पीते हैं, दारू पी के आते हैं, घर में ड्रामा करते हैं, खाने पीने के लिए नहीं दे, बच्चों को रखते हैं बिल्कुल भी. वहीं से पी के आते हैं, काम पैसे ही, दारू कितने कमाते हैं, सब दारू में जाता है.
As Pooja rebuilds her house brick by brick and other women carry these bricks for her, they hold together their lives penny by penny, hoping that a year ahead of the pandemic, their lives would hold a new meaning.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.